I've been keeping an eye on the Secret World MMO for quite some time, mainly because I kept hearing that while it is your typical MMO, it had an atypical setting, and some genuinely amazing quest designs centered on investigation. No, not the follow the compass or use this unique gameplay segment kind. I'm talking about investigation that requires honest-to-god thinking, which is great because I've never really been into the massive multiplayer online phenomenon. I mean, I've played a bit of WoW, some Knights of the Old Republic, and quite a bit of Guild Wars too, but I was always the first to quit out of my friends. The mechanics just never really gripped me, but the Secret World seemed to have something worth plowing through the more tedious aspect of hotbar MMO-centered content. Thus, played the Secret World I did. A lot. Probably too much. Yeah, I'm surprised at this myself, given that I'm not big on the genre. I mean, I did play solo. Well, in as much as you can solo in such a game, I still partied up for the dungeons and waved at people, but nobody I knew started this game with me. I was all alone in a big new world, which in many ways was probably intended? Question mark? What I mean by that is that the developers purposefully made use of phasing so that you won't see that many players running around at any given time. The unfortunate side effect of this is that I genuinely thought the game was deader than dead, like less than 100 active players dead. But I understand why they did it. It is because of the theme. You see, the Secret World is a place where... Actually, I'll let this guy say it.
Every myth, every legend, every dirty limerick created to make sense of what is unknowable and unfair, it's all true. Or at least sufficiently true to cause alarm.
It is basically a smorgasbord of modern fantasy genre tropes all smashed into one setting. One moment you can find yourself facing off against a horde of zombies, and then suddenly you are thrown into an X-Files styles conspiracy, only to find out at the end that the true culprits are entities from beyond space and time. It is fun, and thank God it isn't medieval fantasy. There is something intrinsically more pleasing about finding Sir Galahad in the middle of London, and hearing his tales about hitting on modern women rather than hearing the nth generic fantasy world who fails at being Middle-earth for the nth time. And it is also clear that the writers knew they were writing genre fiction and had a lot of fun with it. Between the spiffy mummy talking about meeting the Forbes 500 or an edgy writer atop a lighthouse searching for inspiration by shooting zombies, the Secret World is camp as all hell.
But I write for a living. I make millions repeating myself. What's your excuse?
That being said, the investigation quests are the real highlight. They are wholly based on observing environmental cues and paying attention to even the most minute details you come across while doing the tedious kill X monsters or collect 10 monster butts that define this type of experience most of the time. The amazing thing here is that the developers went above and beyond the Call of Duty to reinforce this aspect to make you feel like a paranormal Sherlock Holmes. There is an inbuilt browser for the player to have easy access when looking for out-of-game content made specifically for quests, such as a cryptic YouTube video or fake WordPress accounts. It really does an excellent job at immersing you in the whole discovery mythos that the Secret World tries to embody. It ain't just a theme park for you to stroll through without paying attention, even in the cases where it is an actual theme park. Here's one of my personal favorites so you understand what I mean. A rather mysterious fellow is clearly up to no good. Whatever that may be is unclear, but the cutscene introduction shows it has to do with a weak signal. You have to go and fix a nearby antenna to see what this signal is about, but how do you do that? By using the internet, of course, to check for the necessary parts on the manufacturing site of said antenna, and then getting said parts from a warehouse where the player would have spent an hour probably cycling through every combination to get the right answer, if he did not visit the correct website to know what to pick up. But here's the kicker, the message you find by fixing the antenna is in Morse code. Yep, Morse code. I legitimately had to download the decoder, run the message through it, and then go to the place its coordinates described. That's pretty hardcore, and figuring it all out by myself made the world of, well, the Secret World, that much more real. And this is what games are about, no? Trying to get past the gaminess and make something appear true even though the player knows it isn't. Now obviously this doesn't cancel the fact that you're still playing an MMO 90% of the time, and this is what made me quit in the end. Too many mobs blocking my path when I was doing an investigation quest, and doing the old hotbar rigmarole wears you down pretty quick. I will also say that while I greatly appreciate the investigation quests, they are not without fault. Solving all of them requires such a vast array of general knowledge that you will have to ask or look around online for solutions at one point or another, and of course, some of them are almost impossibly cryptic. But probably the thing which drags down this type of content the most is that it conflicts with the very nature of the genre in which it is set in, even though it might fit with a theme, because MMOs, especially the theme park style popularized by World of Warcraft, are about perpetual motion. There is always something to do, always something to grind, always some arrow guiding you towards some action that will reward you in some way, however small. Puzzle design is decidedly the opposite of that. It presupposes moments of inactivity, moments when the player needs to look around and figure out how to proceed. After all, if you just chew through one puzzle after the other without much thought, then it might be a puzzle game in theory, but not so much in practice. Looking at you, Telltale. Puzzles have moments of meditation, and it's these moments that are the problem, since it gets exceedingly tedious to stay calm and center yourself when zombies respawn on top of you and you know you have to fight like 50 more to get to the place where you have a hunch that you want to verify and thus solve the current mystery vexing you. With this in mind, it comes as no surprise that the Secret World failed horribly, though it was a confluence of factors really. The shiny Guild Wars 2 made it look like a dinosaur, and people were already experiencing MMO fatigue even before that. Its central innovation didn't jive with the type of game it was set in, and the presentation... Look, there is pretty good writing in this game, some of it darn good, but for some unfathomable reason, they decided to front-load it with some of the worst it has to offer.
By the way, our organization is called the Templars. You may have heard of us. We've been around a while. Good day.
I played the Templar faction, and I swear it sounds like I'm playing some crappy budget greenlight RPG on Steam at first. It takes a few hours before the decent voice actors show up and the main plot starts properly unfolding in interesting ways. But until then, there is a massive cringe curve to pass, which didn't help this game who was already crippled from the start anyway. You know, today I logged in Guild Wars 2 for the first time in years and ran around for the while in the PvP hub area. What surprised me is how I couldn't remember anything about the experience except the greatest broad strokes. I don't think this will happen with the Secret World. Its good moments are its own. It doesn't need clutch Skinner box or play with friends mentality to have some genuinely unique content. These moments stand on their own. I will say though that the fact that we don't have a Secret World single player RPG almost made me weep on the inside. The investigation quests are perfect for that type of game. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is the closest we have, and while it is a legendary game, it was 13 years ago. Look, I know it won't happen. Funcom tested the waters with a single-player horror game called The Park, centered on one of the better quest lines in the Secret World. The response was lukewarm, to say the least. Now they seem more interested in doing Rust Age of Conan version, but hey, I can keep dreaming, can't I? So, I've never really been a big fan of MMOs, as you might have surmised. I've always felt the social space was used as more of a crutch to cover up what is painfully stretched content, all with the goal of keeping the player playing forever. I made friends in Dota or Counter-Strike, but at its core there still is a rock-solid game that doesn't waste your time. Let me put it this way, I find the concept of daily quests offensive since it is such a blatant carrot-stick tactic to keep you playing. Do they enhance the experience of being a fantasy superhero in World of Warcraft? Nope. Is it to give the player something to do every day? In part, but why does the quest disappear at the end of the day? Why not just let them stack? Because it is about bringing you back every day, and that is its fundamental purpose. It's about developing a routine. And even with all of that, even with all that pile of things I dislike stacked one on top of each other, I still played 90 hours of the Secret World. And I will probably keep some of those moments forever because they are distinctly self-sufficient experiences. I once heard someone say MMOs are like a bar, where the gameplay is the beer, cheap and easy but great with friends. Keeping in mind with that analogy, the investigation quests in the Secret World are like slamming a $500 bottle of Ornilaya wine next to all those beers. Amazing, but it takes time to enjoy, and by that point your friends have probably left the bar.